Greetings, detectives. Mrs. McKay here, and we're on clue 7 of case 8. This is our last clue, and we're going to be talking about two-way frequency tables. So let's go ahead and start by filling in our learning target. I can make and create a two-way relative frequency table and determine the conditional relative frequency. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First thing, let's do a review. Frequency tables. We've done some frequency tables already. Frequency tables are simply listing the different items that we're collecting data on and the number of each item. And a cumulative frequency table, remember, it has just a third column where we add up our totals as we go. Now we're going to create a two-way frequency table. So let me show you what I mean. Here we have a list of information. We have a grade level and we have their favorite meal. So we asked students what was their favorite meal, and we asked 9th and 10th graders. And now we're going to take all of this information and we're going to put it in this table over here in the main body. I've got favorite meals of students going across the top and the grade level going down the bottom or along the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start making little tally marks and across the top here. I'm going to leave most of my boxes open because I've got a lot more information, but to count I'm just going to do little tally marks. So my first thing, I have a 9th grade like salad bar, so I'm going to put a little mark there. Burger 10th grade. Pizza 10th grade. So you can see I'm just putting it in the right column and row that goes with it. 10th grade chicken nuggets. 10th grade chicken nuggets. 9th grade burgers. 10th grade salad bar. And you go ahead and finish this. Do what I'm doing and go ahead and finish it, and I'll finish it as well. So it took me a while. I don't know how long it took you, but I double checked everything. The first thing that I did was I counted to see how many total I needed to have, and I found that there were 20 entries or 20 different favorite choices. And then I added up my totals and they weren't right. So then I went back and I double checked how many 9th grade burgers did I have, how many 9th grade chickens, etc., etc. So I had to erase a few things. But anyway, I think my tallies are now correct. And now I can just write how many of each I have. So I have 3 burgers for 9th grade, 1 chicken, 0 pizza, 4 salads, and then for 10th grade I have 3 burgers and 5 chickens, 2 pizzas, and 2 salads. Now I've created a two-way frequency table, but we're going to do a little bit more than that. We're going to actually total things up. We want to know how many total 9th graders were there, and there were 3, 4 plus 4 is 8. So there were a total of 8 9th graders, and there were a total of 10, how many 10th graders? 8 and 4 is 12. And then we want to add up the total number of burger choices. So we go down, and 3 and 3 is 6, and 1 and 5 is 6, 0 and 2 is 2, 4 and 2 is 6. And if we've done all of our counting correctly, then everything, the total should also add up. So that means 8 and 12 should be 20, and 6, 6, 2, and 6 should be 20. So 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 8 is 20, 8 and 12 is 20. So my totals add up correctly here as well. So now that I've created, I've filled in my table with all of the right amounts. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a relative frequency table. This is just a two-way frequency table, but we want to create a relative frequency table. And a relative frequency table says what percentage of each item, what's the percentage of each item out of the total amount. So our total amount of choices, favorite meals, was 20, right? That was there were 20 people that were chosen, that were asked, and so there were 20 different choices. So for each box, I'm going to write the percentage of, or the fraction, the number of burgers, 9th grade burgers, out of 20 is 3 out of 20. And then for chicken, for 9th grade, 1 out of 20, 0 out of 20. You get what I'm doing, right? Go ahead and then 8 out of 20. Go ahead and do that. So now that you have all of your fractions in there, now we're going to figure out what those percentages are. So you can do it one of two ways. You can pull out your calculator, because you know that 3 over 20 is just a division problem, and if you divide 3 divided by 20, you're going to get a fraction, or you're going to get a decimal, and that decimal rounded to the two decimal places is your percentage. You can also just think of this as 3 over x over 100, and whatever I multiply 20 by to get 100, I multiply the top number by 5, because that's what I'm multiplying, 20 by 5 to get 100, so I would multiply my top number by 5, and that'll tell me the value over 100, which would make it an equivalent fraction, but anything over 100 is a percent. So 3 times 5 is 15%. Let me change my color. So 1/20th is 5%. 0/20ths is 0%. 4/20ths, 4 times 5 is 20%. 8 times 5 is 40%. 3 times 5 is 15%. 5 times 5 is 25%. You get the idea? Go ahead and finish this off. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to do, I noticed that I made a mistake, was it should be 20 out of 20, not 20 out of 100. So let me change that really quick. And so 20 out of 20 would be 100%. So our bottom right corner, which has both totals coming together, the total of everything should be 100%, right? Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that all of my percentages add up to the right thing. So if I go down and I add up my burger percentages, I have 15% and 15% should make my total of 30%. Chicken should be 5 and 25, makes 30%. Pizza, 0 and 10, makes 10%. Salad, 20 and 10, makes 30%. And then my totals, 40 and 60, should make 100%. It should also go across the same way. All of my 9th grade, 15, 5, and 20 is 20 and 20 makes 40%, good. And then 15 and 25 and 10 is 20, plus 25 is 45, 45 and 5 is 50, plus 10 more is 60, so 60%. And 30, 30, 30 is 90, plus 10 is 100. So it all works out. So that is a two-way relative frequency table. And you might get asked questions like, how many 9th graders or how many 9th graders chose salad as their favorite meal? And you would tell me there were 4 that chose salad as their favorite meal. But I might also ask, what percentage of 9th graders chose salad as their favorite meal? And then you would tell me 20%. Okay? So try this one. What percentage of students, of all students, chose chicken as their favorite meal? Now this time I did not say 9th or 10th grade. I said of all the students. So you would have to look at the total of students who chose pizza or who chose chicken and say 30%. Or I might say, what percentage of 10th graders participated in this survey? And then you would have to look at the total number of 10th graders and tell me that it was 60%. So it's all about understanding what's being asked of you, okay? So a relative frequency table, once we get our table filled in, it's finding the percentage overall, okay, the percentage overall. Now we're going to talk a little bit about a conditional relative frequency. And actually, let me tell you a couple other things. These are words that you may or may not want to know. All of the items in the center that are not the totals, so all of the stuff on the inside, those are called joint frequencies. And all of the totals the ones on the outside, are called marginal frequencies. I don't know if that really matters much to you, but I thought I'd tell you that. Joint and marginal. Now let's talk about conditional relative frequencies. Now we're going to write in the same information, but we're not going to put in we're just going to put our totals in. We're not going to put any percentages or fractions yet. So go ahead and fill in the exact same thing that we did in our above table, but this time just put the numbers. Okay, now for conditional relative frequency, we're going to focus on a particular area, or a category. So what we'll do is we'll start by saying, instead of doing our percentages based on the total, we're going to do them based on the total of each category. So, for example, if I wanted to know what the percentage was of ninth graders who chose burgers, then I would say, we'll do ninth graders who chose burgers, and we'll go this way. So of all the ninth graders, the total amount of ninth graders is 8, right? The total number of ninth graders is 8. So for the total number of ninth graders that chose burgers, it would be 3 out of 8. Okay? And then 1 out of 8 for chicken, and 0 out of 8 for pizza, and 4 out of 8 for salad, and then 8 out of 8 for our total. And then we do the same thing for 10th grade, but instead of taking it out of 8, it's going to be out of 12, right? So this would be 3 out of 12, 5 out of 12, 2 out of 12, and 2 out of 12. All right? So that's one way that we could do it, is by looking at the individual category of ninth grade, and then we could figure out our percentages. And if you want to, well, why don't you go ahead and do that? Why don't you figure out the percentages? So what'd you come up with? What happened when you started? Let me make this a little bigger. What happened when you started doing your percentages and you had decimals? Did you round up? And did you find that when you rounded up, like this one right here would have been 37.5%, and this one was 12.5%. So if you rounded both of them up to 38 and 13, you would have come up with 101%. So I rounded one up and kept the other the same. That's what I did on this one. Down here, I had 2 twelfths was 16.6%. And so if I rounded both of them up, it became 17%. And again, I ended up with 101%. So what I'm going to do on this one, and since they're exactly the same, I don't really want to make one be 16% and one be 17%. So I'm going to make them both be 16.5%. Okay, so you can use decimals if you want. Just round it to the nearest tenth of the percent. And I didn't fill in this bottom one mainly because I wanted to show you that you could do a conditional frequency table the other way. We could find out our categories of burgers instead of ninth graders, and we could say, of all the students who chose burgers, what percentage of them were ninth grade? So let's try that. So let's do this now. Let's use green. And this time we're going to use 6 out of 6 as our 100.